Hello, meeting host. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Rita.
Hello.
How are you?
Exhausted.
I hope you had a good visit.
They're still here.
Oh,
The fun continues.
Are they invited to this?
I invited them, but I think they're going to have dinner instead.
I had
I don't think we'd
popcorn.
want a 3.5-year-old, rambunctious 3.5-year-old participating.
I kind of think that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, that, guess I don't need this, huh? Alone in my room? Okay. Well, I know Melissa's almost ready.
Yeah.
I gotta make Melissa's correct machine into the co-host. Oh, it's this one. Okay. So let me test this chart. Just make sure I can share the screen. And you guys, did you see your email with the chart?
Yeah,
No.
I've got it.
When did that come in?
Oh, probably about 10 minutes ago.
No, but I have my phone here.
I printed it out. I thought that would be easier.
I think we'll do it. I'll be the scribe, so we can
Yeah.
do it on the whiteboard. If that's okay, if you guys decide to do it that way.
I think that makes sense. Yes.
I'm just going to test if I can screen share okay. I wonder if this is it. Yep.
There you are.
Okay. So it should work. That sounds good. Oh, that's your easel where you've been painting, April?
Yes, it is.
Lovely.
It has been so much fun. Oh, that's not what I want.
Hi, April.
Hello.
How you be?
I'd be good. I'd be really good.
Really good. Well,
It's been a beautiful day.
yeah. Hi, Becky.
Hey, Al, it's fun to see out and see the sky through your skylights.
Yeah. It's a nice day.
Oh, God, yes.
Really nice day.
I got to dig in the dirt for a while.
Are you planting garden or planting flowers or?
Well, I've had this old garden that's never been productive, and I've decided to dig away part of it and create a raised bed garden, a small one.
Uh-huh.
And being a tourist, getting my hands dirty is a happy time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, we want to we did our first garden last year and we want to put another one in this year. Just a small one. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Al. How are you doing?
Good. Hanging in. The semester just finished up, so I've got grading to do and grades to figure out, but no more classes.
Good.
Yeah, it's good.
Good. That's great. The rest of the month will be
How are
good
things
for
in
you.
your world?
Very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amherst is doing in-person commencement, so it's busy.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, shall we, it's 5:30. Shall we call ourselves to order?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna pull up the agenda real quick. I didn't have it on my screen, so.
Oh,
it
there's
just
Donna.
appeared. Where's Donna? Donna, wave your hand. Oh, there you are. Thank you.
And we should title ourselves so that,
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
maybe Donna should be town council. Goddess.
Old timer.
Old timer.
Here's the agenda. At least I think this is the last one we have. Updated. All right, before we start in on the agenda, Becky, make sure that we don't forget the grant from Bruce at the end.
Yes,
of
the
the-
school SBA, and I was hoping Linda can help remind us too.
Yes, Linda, if you could help remind us if we need to.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Anything else, Becky, that we need to add that's been unexpected?
That was, I believe we've captured all the other changes.
Okay. And I'm just changing my name here.
We also have just received back the planning board articles that have been amended. Donna, do we have to do that officially?
Well, you can just accept them and forward them to the planning board.
So we'll add that too, okay?
Yep. And then send back. Okay. All right, I've written that down. Okay, so tonight we are doing a little bit different format. We are going to take an opportunity for the select board town council to discuss and sit down together to discuss the AMP proposal that is outlined earlier this year. So what we're going to do is for the first hour, 5:30 to 6:30, we're going to have just the select board members, town council, town administrator talking. There may be maybe one or two others, but that's the hope. This is our first time where the select board is having the chance to talk about it. So public participation is not going to be part of this part. After we take a break, there'll be some minutes where we will allow public comment and public participation at that point. Does that sound, April and Rita?
Yep.
Sound like what our plan was? Okay. So to introduce that, so tonight, the select board, this being the first time we're having this discussion and about the proposal from AMP. And since the March DOR meeting, the select board wants to start by identifying our role in the process. The select board is responsible in the normal course of events to negotiate the pilot agreement with a solar developer. That usually happens towards the end of a project. The proposal brought forward by AMP was a new component. The new component is for the town to consider doing maintenance and operations of the solar site. This arrangement, a private developer is asking the town to do operations and maintenance, is a first of its kind, first of its idea. There are no examples for us to look to. And at a meeting with DOR, we gained some information. We've gained other information from other resources on what is not acceptable in this arrangement. Hiring a subcontractor to fulfill the maintenance operations is not an acceptable option. The arrangement would have to be figured out. So secondly, if the town does go into an agreement to which DOR signs off on, we currently understand the developer may gain public entity status, which would normally go to a public entity. So what would that mean for the town? This is what this is, and all issues related to it that the select board wants to explore tonight in a conversation to start in the first hour, which we've just explained. And then we'll take a break as I explained. So I think we should open it up to our conversation.
Well,
Rita, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I also wanted to make it really clear to people, because from the letters we're getting, there seems to be some confusion. The
Jump on in.
select board does not do any of the permitting of the actual applications. That's a process that's through the planning board. And I just feel like I want to make that clear, because people, I mean, we know the process, and I don't think everybody does.
I felt similarly too with what we got, that it seemed like there was an air of that the select board could tell AMP and Coles that they couldn't do the project, and that we don't have the power to do that. That's not in our purview.
We
So-
have a planning board that does that.
Yep.
And they uphold our bylaws. That's their role. Okay, anyway.
All right. So let's open up our discussion. Where would we like to start this discussion? Donna's here to help. Go ahead, Rita. You can just jump in. Go ahead. You can unmute
Sure.
yourself.
Okay, so it just, a point of clarification. Back in January of this year, the select board received a draft memorandum of understanding
Right.
from AMP regarding a public-private partnership and operations and maintenance agreement, MOU, which at the time was talked about as potentially a first step towards then later executing a contract, an operations and maintenance contract. I don't recall the exact date of the meeting, but we did have a select board meeting at which I believe the planning board might have been present. And Donna, I know you were, town council was present at that meeting. And what was determined then, my recollection is that memorandum of understanding was not anything that the town would move forward with, simply because it was kind of unenforceable. And I think the guidance we were getting from you, Donna, was that it was vague, and this is a very complex undertaking. Since that time, I don't believe we've gotten anything further from AMP. We did have a discussion with the Department of Energy Resources, myself, Becky, Michael DiChiara, Deacon Bonner from the town, and then I think there were 6 or 7 DOER staff people, and talked generally about an operations and maintenance agreement and public entity status. But I'm just, I'm trying to think tonight, what are we talking about? Because we don't have an agreement before us. I know there has been mention by AMP of, looking to work with the town, but what that means remains to be defined.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what we can do here today. I guess I've been coming from this position, like, or hearing from people that, AMP is going to eat us alive. And I don't think that's the case. I think we have a lot more status in this arrangement than maybe we've believed. That I think it would be, AMP would want us to do this. And if we're going to do this, it has to benefit our town. And that's the bottom line. But anyway.
And to speak to Rita's comment is we don't have anything in front of us to really use as it's kind of a conceptual conversation, right, Rita? We don't have anything like a meaty document.
Well, we don't have any kind of formal proposal. I mean, there was that draft as MOU, which I think we kind of dispensed with. And in fact, when we had the meeting with DOER, they indicated that they would be looking for an actual contract, not a memorandum of understanding, but rather a contract, a signed contract for operations and maintenance in order to, as one of the things that would qualify AMP for public entity status. So I'm just trying to, trying to get straight what it is we're accomplishing. And I know there are a lot of people here, checking my numbers periodically, 60 people from town. We've heard from a lot of people. And, I would reinforce what April said. This select board does not permit the solar development. What we're talking about tonight is whether the select board would want to execute an operations and maintenance agreement with AMP, but we don't know what that is. I mean, I'm not, so Donna, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the problem with this whole concept is how little knowledge we have. DOER has basically said that an MOU will not work to create public entity. And my review of the MOU was just, it didn't get us anywhere. It didn't pin down anything, didn't give us any information. There was absolutely no reason to entertain it at that time. My understanding from the March 24th meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rita, or anybody else was there, that DOER indicated that they weren't even sure this arrangement, private land, private solar company, public management, would in fact meet the public entity provision. So it seems to me that one of the points of tonight, rather than making any real decisions, is sort of outlining what questions we have that we need answers to, what information would we want that we don't have, so that we can begin to move forward in getting those answers, getting that information, so that if the select board's put in a position to make an informed choice on signing a contract somewhere down the road, that in fact you have all the information you need to make that decision. And I think we're so far from that, that one of the things that we need to say back to AMP is, look, we don't even know what you're asking of us. And so we can't possibly agree, we can't possibly negotiate a contract. Am I looking at 5 solar fields that would take 10 employees to manage? Am I looking at 3 solar fields that would take 3 employees to manage? How can we enter into a contract talking about somebody reimbursing us for the entire costs of management when we don't even have any information on that? So, and that's sort of going down one rabbit hole. So I think the first question is DOER DOER even prepared to consider this arrangement as a public entity arrangement? If
Okay.
they're not, then they come in, they permit like any other solar project, and we'll see what happens. If DOER is willing to entertain that, what does that mean? What does that mean, particularly in terms of them being able to build in places that may be environmentally sensitive, that we don't want them building in, regardless of whether they're a public entity or not? What does that mean as far as town's participation in that? So I think question one, and I don't know that we can get an answer out of DOR, but question one is to at least communicate with DOER and ask them the very specific question. Would they consider a private entity on private land with a town operating and maintaining the solar array fitting within their definition of public entity?
Mhm.
Because we need that answer. We need to at least know, we'll consider it. If you come up with a proposal and a draft agreement that seems to have the town totally immersed in this project, so we can consider it a public entity, whatever they give us back, but we need something back from them to get an idea before the select board and the town continue to spin wheels
Mhm.
around this concept, if it's not even going to be approved anyway.
Hmm.
So I mean, that would be one of my first priorities, is to draft a letter to DOER and ask them if they'll even entertain this.
So, we did, it was a relatively short meeting. I think it was all of maybe 40 minutes, but it was packed in a lot with, as I said, I don't know, there were like 10 or 11 of us on the call. And my recollection is that the DOER staff, there were 3 lawyers there, and I think 3 or 4 staff people, did not say this could not be done. So, but what they did say is we won't know what a public-private partnership of this design, we won't know it till we see it. We won't know whether or not we will accept this until we see what your contract is. And, they were pushed on that by town, by town officials. And what they did agree to is they said, we can't provide you any legal assistance. You can't access our attorneys, but we would be willing to look at what you're contemplating and give you some feedback. But we will not formally review anything until you have the agreement, the contract. So, it puts us in this very strange place. And I think in large part, that is because DOER didn't really envision this kind of a setup. When they designed and wrote the regulations for public-private partnerships, it was anticipated that there would be solar being put on public land, with the benefits accruing to the municipality, so that, in a larger municipality, you might have been able to power all your municipal buildings.
Right.
But this arrangement where it's simply, where it's private land with a private developer, with the town just being, serving as the operations and doing operations and maintenance, and that being the public part of the public-private partnership, was not something that they contemplated. They haven't seen it before. There are no other examples in Massachusetts, so they were very cautious.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and I'm not sure that we could ever get a a direct answer out of them unless we had real specifics about
And-
what was in a contract.
And that's obviously my concern, because
Mhm.
we can't draft a contract until we have a lot more information about what this would look like. And what I mean by that is what facilities would be on the ground that then we would be required to manage, that we couldn't subcontract out.
Mhm.
And so what would that mean as far as number of employees? Are we really prepared to have a town the size of Shutesbury basically all of a sudden be managing large solar projects when we don't even know the number? So I think that and I think you're absolutely right, Rita. I just don't think DOER is going to commit until there's a lot more information. And I think that if AMP really wants to go forward with this project or consider permitting it, that's where they need to start. If their caveat is we can't start it without an agreement with the town, then I don't see how it moves forward,
Mhm.
because we can't do an agreement without knowing what they're going to do.
Well, it's also unclear, if there's any variation on what that agreement could be. Would it be possible to put, for the agreement to be that that there is a solar array on public land in addition to the rest? I mean, I don't think that's something that's even been talked about. We don't know.
And we don't even know if we want it. I mean, I think
Exactly.
one of the things that I think so concerned a lot of people was this concept that if they become a public entity, can they build in environmentally sensitive places? They couldn't if they weren't a public entity. And I think that's part of the point of being a public entity under the regs. And so the question becomes, could we put in our management contract that you can't take away the siting from the planning board? As you all understand, that's the planning board's decision. But could you put in the contract, for example, if you get permitted to build in environmentally sensitive areas, this contract's null and void and we won't be willing to manage it for you?
Right.
I mean, do we want something of that nature to make it very clear that while we love the tax base and there's certain things that are enticing about this, the lack of information, the idea that they may be able to get around building in environmentally sensitive areas, that kind of thing, is not something that we want to
Mhm.
happen. So, how much of that can we control with the management contract versus the planning board controlling it under the bylaws?
Right.
But again, here we are. Where are they going? How environmentally sensitive are the areas? How big are they? I mean, without them putting plans to the planning board so that the permitting process begins, I don't know how the select board entertains maintenance and operations agreement.
Mhm.
I mean, even the idea of hiring an actuary to say, look, there's this many solar fields, they're this size. We need you to give us a breakdown of how many employees would be needed, the cost of those employees, what equipment would be needed, the cost of that equipment, so that we in fact can put together a spreadsheet on the cost of this to the town to
Mhm.
pass it back to the developer. We can't even do that without some solid plans. So, I'm not convinced that the select board moving forward first is possible without AMP going to the planning board.
Yeah. Well, it's like you keep saying, what would we be moving forward with?
Right.
And I'm also noticing there's some noise. If everybody
Sounds like
could be
crack.
muted. Yeah, if everybody could mute themselves, that would be really helpful. We've got 70 people in this room. So I think it's not our move. That's what you're saying?
You know, I'm just not convinced I'm not convinced we have a move at this stage of the game. Without, without something much more concrete.
Donna, the only thing I wanted to add to that whole question around building in environmentally sensitive areas, and they call it the biomap, and parts of the sites are within the state's biomap designation, was the one thing that DOER said. So if you get into into this category 1, kind of this fast track, because you're public entity status, it says that you do not have to comply with with that regulation around no more than 50% of the area. What DOER did say, though, that was they do not get involved with permitting decisions, and that the SMART program is really about financial incentives for solar development. And so they set up these criteria, and then you, as a solar developer, get all these financial incentives through the SMART program. But they do not they don't get involved in anything having to do with permitting. So, it could be interpreted that even though you get that category 1 status, it doesn't give you a free ride in terms of having to comply. And that's that, as we talk with the planning board, I'd like to hear back from them if that's in fact their interpretation from.
Well, and I think the problem there becomes their regulations say that you do get sort of a pass on those things. So do those regulations trump
Right.
local law? And if they do, is that really something that we want to just give up, or do we want to try and capture it somewhere else, like in the management agreement?
Right.
It doesn't make sense for them to put that in the regs and then say any town local bylaw can trump it. So what is the public entity getting then?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're getting, I mean, it's.
I get the financial piece, right? But why would they even have that then? Why would they just say you get this extra money?
Yeah, I think in part they had that because if you were building on public land, it's like giving yourself your own exemption. But again,
Right.
It's something that I think it'd be good to hear from our planning board. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm just not convinced that having that in those regs doesn't sort of trump local objection to them building in those areas, just like 48 section 3 trumps local zoning on religious buildings, educational structures, that kind of thing. I just think that we would want a much clearer understanding of whether or not AMP could come. If we refused a permit because they were going in an environmentally sensitive area, could they then appeal that decision and say that the regulations for DOER trump the local permitting decision?
So there's our first question for DOER.
Yes. Well, it also sounds like this is designed. This is designed for the intent was for a public entity to be building on our own land. And what's different here, this is private land. That's where I don't think maybe it's been thought through.
Or even a private entity building on public land.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Or even a public entity building on private land. The problem is that this is private entity building on private land and just trying to pull us in as the manager to get this extra funding and stuff. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but we don't know what it means. And not knowing what it means puts us in a position of saying, we're interested, but we can't give you any kind of commitment. We can't move this forward without a great deal more information.
Right. Because it is an intriguing idea. And I think, as you're pointing out really clearly, there's a lot that we don't know. So how do we agree?
We can't, we're just not in a position to enter any kind of agreement with them.
But this doesn't necessarily mean that the applications before, well, and maybe I don't know this, but I understand that this doesn't mean that applications before the planning board for the solar fields wouldn't happen anyway. I don't think they're linked,
Right.
but that's not the select board's concern. Our concern is this particular piece of it, right?
Right.
All right. So there you go.
So I'm thinking, I think we're maybe have a consensus here. We need a lot more information. We have at least a couple of questions, go forward with a letter to DOR. Becky, I know you had written them down and so did I.
Yes.
And then kind of start there and from what Donna suggested, start there, gather more information, and then when we have something more concrete to discuss, bring it back and discuss it again to see if it, as we get information, maybe it bubbles up again and we have another conversation like this to see if we want to go forward with the next step. But I agree, we need more information, something concrete. Becky?
I just wanted to take this opportunity to be clear with the public.
Okay.
That if at any point there's a contract before the select board, what the process is and what the public's involvement is with that process. Because there seems to be a lot of confusion around that too. And so if this requested contract would be for a minimum, I believe of 20 years. The select board would need to go to a town meeting to get permission to enter a contract of that length, anything over 3 years. So that being the case, there would, this contract would require a warrant article on an annual town meeting. So the public would have an opportunity to weigh in.
And
at
would that be a
point.
simple majority
Mhm,
vote
yes.
either way? That wouldn't require 2/3. So, okay.
And that too, just to add on what Becky just said, there'd be meetings all along the way too, to get it to that point. So the public could have some participation there too, right, Becky?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. There would be select board meetings ahead.
Right.
But that would, I just wanted people to know that this is nothing, this is not a situation where the select board can have, a quiet little meeting where nobody attends and sign a 20-year contract that nobody knows about. This is a very, it's publicly regulated, and the issue at hand is that the select board is dealing with a lot of vagaries at this point and struggling to understand how the concept that's been presented can actually roll out.
And it is complicated by the fact this hasn't been done anywhere. It's not like we can call Leverett and said, well, how did you do this? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And
No, so
the-
we're the ones setting maybe the standard for other towns, right? If it was something we entertained.
And so going through the list of pros and cons, questions to look at for pros and cons, how do we ask? Because we don't know. That's, we don't know. So
We can't even make a list of questions because we don't have enough information to even know what questions to ask yet. And so it's, it's like we've said, it's an intriguing idea, but there are so many unknowns. Nobody can move forward with it until the developer becomes much more concrete in their proposal.
I agree. And if they do, I still believe that the town is in a really good negotiating position. That I think that's important, just to hold on to that idea if they go through.
Right.
But how do you negotiate nothing?
Right.
Good point. Good point.
All right. That's all
All right. That was,
Well, is there anything Donna, is there anything we're missing, you know?
We don't know at this stage of the game. I mean,
Okay,
that's, I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, I think that you can start making lists. If you want to expend the energy, start making lists about what you would want covered in the agreement.
Mhm.
Full compensation without
Yep.
the town paying a dime, number of
Mhm.
employees, number of projects, but
but even the number of employees, we don't have room for the staff we have. I mean, where would we put, that was one of my questions, where would we put people, you know? And
well, this remote thing is working really well with COVID.
that's right. Put everybody in a computer box.
I think a lot of businesses are making space decisions as they're going back. Number of employees and the other thing I thought of, no, I just lost it though. Continue, April.
Oh, no, I was just looking over my list of, and realizing that, you know, there is no answer at this point. And if there were a proposal, we would have answers. It's fully transparent, you know, a process that the town weighs in on. And I think that's really important. There's nothing nefarious happening in this.
Go ahead, Rita. You can just jump in. Jump in.
So I want to get back to Donna's point that we don't know what we would be operating and maintaining.
Right.
And I don't think we can execute any kind of agreement until we know what we're operating and maintaining. And also, no one that I know, anyway, that stepped forward, you know, has the expertise and the technical background in operating and maintaining what are, in essence, 5 mini power plants. And so, you know, I don't think, and I think Donna spoke to this at that meeting, that other meeting where we talked about the MOU, you know, that we would need, beyond an actuary, we would need an expert to tell us what exactly is involved in operating and maintaining these small power plants.
Mhm.
And what sort of liability does the town incur in taking on such a responsibility? So pretty complex. I think we would need a lot of assistance, but I don't think we're there. We're not there because we don't know what we'd be operating and maintaining. And until that time, I think it's a discussion that we can sit here and talk about it, but we don't really have a sense of what it is.
True. Becky, I see your hand.
So there are models such as like a cost plus operations and maintenance agreement that the town could use if it ever got to that point.
Mhm.
But I think at this point, if we just start, we can list potential possibilities and explore if they're viable or not viable. If we get, if we get anything concrete enough to determine that. And there are ways to create entities like enterprise funds or an entity that would help shelter the town's liability and make it unique to a specific thing. And Donna, when we get to that point, we can ask you for advice of around that. But I think, until
yeah, one of my concerns is if it's on private land owned by a private company and we're just operating it, does the Tort Claims Act protect us
that's a good
given
point.
those issues? And if it doesn't, does that mean that the town opens itself up to the kind of damages that a private entity could suffer if something went horribly wrong? I mean, there's so many questions like that, but spending the time and energy to research something like that now, and try and figure it out when we're so far away from an agreement. seems like sort of a silly waste of money until we're down to caring about what that answer is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's the chicken and the egg.
Yep, still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what have we got? We,
I think you tell Amp that it's an intriguing idea, but without a lot more specifics, the town can't move forward.
yeah,
And I guess I would really question about whether or not we could move forward until we have permits before us.
Yeah.
Before we know what the installations are, because how can you agree to operate and maintain something that you, again, don't know what it is?
I think you mean applications, Rita. Right?
Well,
You
even with
said permit.
applications, but applications, during the permitting process, a lot of things change. And
Okay.
so what an application is doesn't necessarily reflect what the outcome is at the back end after.
True. But it does give a starting point, though.
It's a
At least
starting
it's defining it. Yeah.
and I imagine the agreement could have fluidity built into it,
Well, I don't know that you'd have to build fluidity into it, but you could start negotiating. If there was a concrete application, concrete plans that were going through, excuse me, the permitting process, then you may be able to start, at least, as Rita said, getting a consultant in to talk about how many employees and what kind of equipment and what the cost is of operating
right?
five small energy plants, and how many employees would that take, and so that we could begin to work out the cost of it. It's not like you have to wait till the permits are final and everything's signed, sealed, and delivered to basically start on the agreement. But if in fact it's moving along, the permits are moving along, you could at least start, then it might be worth the effort to start bringing some of these people in, not for final figures, because Rita's absolutely right. Until the permits are in hand, you're not going to know the final figures. You're not going to be able to sign anything. But you could at least be developing concepts, and that's the fluidity piece of it,
Right.
so that, but until those plans are somewhere, we can't even begin to talk about that, other than planning how we deal with it if the plans were there.
So at this point, there's nothing before us for us to make any decision. But
Right.
to be clear, if there were, and if we did go forward and have a contract, that the town would have an opportunity to weigh in. Again, I just want people to understand that this is not being done in the dark of night. And that the town's best interest is really what we have at heart.
Thank you, April.
Let it
I
be.
would second that.
And we're all neighbors.
Yes, we are all neighbors.
We are neighbors. Yes, let it be. So do you think it's time to open it up for public comment? And if we,
Well, let me look at Linda. Linda, how are you
Oh.
feeling for typing?
where is Linda?
Oh,
there you are.
From my screen, she's up at the top.
Yeah, there's 74 people on this call. So this,
Yep, so we'll want to have more than the time we allotted, but I want to make sure Linda does get a break before we go too far tonight because of all the typing that she is.
Thank you, Melissa. So what would be really important to me to know at this point is how long you're going to allow for public comment. I could go, through that, provided there's, I know there's a limit and a break at that point.
So, okay, so I was thinking, and Rita and April jump in here. We're gonna start it early. We had given about 20 minutes. We do have quite a bit of participation here on this Zoom. Do you want to do about a half hour, maybe 40 minutes but I'm gonna have Linda let us know when she needs that break.
so maybe we would end it at 7, which was the original plan.
At the latest, okay?
Actually,
And yes, Becky?
the original agenda had it stopping at
In-
6:30. It was about 20 minutes. I mean, the regular
Yeah.
conversation and then opening up, taking a 10-minute break and opening up for 20 minutes.
Yep.
So maybe we could go until 6:30 for the first half and then give Linda a break so she doesn't get buried. And then.
Okay, so why do we do,
if
that's a
need to
great
go
idea.
Another
Becky.
20 minutes.
Why
each.
don't we do a little bit of, we do, start it now, go to about 6:30, 6:35, and then take a break for 10 minutes. Linda, does
and
that
let's-
feel good?
Let's go over the ground rules too, because
So-
there's 75 people on this call.
So how I was thinking, and Rita and April, please chime in, is that we would give people 1 to 2 minutes for their comment. We need to make sure, and this is for everybody listening, your name, you have to tell us your name and your address very clearly, because Linda has to put that in the minutes.
Mhm.
Right, Linda?
Yes.
Yes. So when you go to speak or unmuted, the first thing should be your name and your address for record. And so then I was thinking about 1 to 2 minutes per person and directing it to the select board, not to each other among the community members, public comment. Anything else that you think that I'm missing? Those are the thoughts I had.
Raise hand.
Raised hand
Raise
function.
hand. Yep. Thank you very much.
And if people are on the phone, you know, I will have a moment to ask if anybody on the phone without a hand or anybody wants
Yeah.
to speak. And I think if this is okay with you, Rita, maybe you and I can help sort of go through the screens as well to see whose hand is up. And
And let me ask a question. Donna,
Yeah.
will you do me a favor? Can you raise your hand? I want to see how this might function. Raise your hand on your computer. I already see
Um,
Becky in the corner, so I don't want to.
You gotta
Just testing.
reactions. Is that where
Yeah,
the
over
raise?
at the bottom.
yeah,
Perfect. Well, Becky, you were already at the top, so that didn't help.
Can
I'm
you see
sorry.
my hand?
yeah.
Yes, I can. Okay. All right. So I think it would be helpful though, Rita, to go through. Maybe we can, so shall we open it up to public comment, Ben? Are we ready? Linda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm
right.
looking through. I am looking.
okay. If you'd like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. I see Andrew would like to. That's the first person I see, so I'm gonna call on Andrew. Does that work?
And yep.
Yep, okay. All right, go ahead, Andrew, unmute yourself. Nobody else unmute for us, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me raise my hand, lower my hand.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everybody. My name is Andrew Chabot. I'm from AMP. I just wanted to just quickly start off to let everyone know I'm here to answer any questions that anyone might have. But of course, I know this is more of a public comment phase. I wanted to thank everyone's time for devoting the conversation to this. I know this is taken away from people's evening, so I really appreciate everyone carving that away this evening. But I guess the first thing just I wanted to address was that AMP did not send a more focused O&M agreement to the town because my understanding was that AMP was just waiting to see if the town was looking to move forward on this conceptually. So I'm very happy to do that. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you need more information, that makes all the sense in the world. It was just sort of is there interest? And then if so, then we can have more of a dialogue on what exactly the town would need to see to feel comfortable to move forward. What are the options? Where are some of the red lines so that we can go through the design process on our ends and try to work with the town on moving forward with this public entity arrangement, if that's what the town wants. So this is new for us too. And I would just like to say, whatever the town feels is most appropriate, I would propose if there was some way to form some sort of working group, some dialogue that we could have to figure out what exactly information we need to get to you that would be helpful for making a decision on moving forward. I took down some notes, number of employees that systems like these could employ. That makes a lot of sense, number of projects, things like that. But I just need to know what the roadblocks are so that we can be as responsive as possible. Because I see it going two different ways. I see it going on a path, like let's say conceptually we had a working group and we could iterate fairly quickly and figure out ways forward. I could also see it a way going in a different direction where this gets drawn out months and months and months, which might not be helpful and might just give everyone sort of fatigue if we do this on like a tempo of every couple months. So that's all I wanted to say. I just want to say, please let me know. Let me know if that would be, the working group would be a good option for the town, and or what you'd prefer moving forward. And absolutely, I can try to get to you whatever you need, and I can work with our team to do that. So thanks,
Andrew.
everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. Susie, I see your hand next.
I have, I understand that there's going to be an attempt to have an information session with, or presentation from Zara Dowling.
Mhm.
And I think information is an important part of this. I can see that the chicken and egg thing says, why would we be working on public forum information if we don't really know what we're getting into or what we want to get into? But I do think that it might be helpful for the town to not be so divisive if we did have some sort of moderated forum where people can express what their concerns are, knowing that the decision isn't at hand. We're not at a deciding point, but there might be in the future a deciding point that happens at town meeting. But I would encourage the town or the select board to consider a moderated forum with different committees involved, so that the townspeople can put some of that energy into informed discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see Leslie's hand.
Yep. Go ahead, Leslie. Just make sure you say your name and your address, please.
Sure. I'm Leslie Carrier. I live at 58 Schoolhouse Road in Shutesbury. And I love this town. I love this forest. And I'm actually feeling a little bit better hearing the select board admit that we know nothing. Donna McNichols, thank you for that. We need to know more. The one thing that I know, and talking to dozens and dozens of neighbors, probably reaching hundreds now, is our zoning bylaws of 15 acres max for solar seems to be our limit. People love this forest. We recreate here. There's never been a project like this. There are too many unknowns. And I think the permitting process is the way to go. And also, I'm happy to hear that the town needs to weigh in on this before anything goes further. So yes, the town must have a meeting. And I think it's too late to include that in our June 12th meeting. So I'm proposing that we have a meeting maybe during the summer or after. Nothing happens until the people in the town get to voice what they want, which they did unanimously before when we said 15 acres max for solar. 190 acres is way more than 15. And also these sites are on wetlands. So they're not even suitable for solar.
Leslie, you've got about 5 more seconds.
That's it. Thank you, April.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Becky.
Melissa,
Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to mention that we have scheduled Zara Dowling to speak at a Smart Program Solar event on next Wednesday, the 19th. And I've been, as soon as I can, the notice will be going out to the public. So that is scheduled and will happen. It will be moderated by Paul Lyons, and Zara will give a 15-minute presentation to be followed with an opportunity for questions to be entered through. We're hoping people will email their questions ahead so she can review them and sort out which she can answer and which she can't. But this is scheduled for the 19th, next Wednesday.
Thank you, Becky. I see C. Fuentes.
Hi, thank you for the time. My name is Carlos Fontes. I live on 3559 Montague Road. in Shutesbury. And I would like to start by thanking Leslie for talking about love for the forest, because I think that as we go forward, we need to expand our agenda of conversation from just thinking of this as a municipal management issue. It's limited. We need also to talk about the wisdom and the of sacrificing forests to build solar parks, and whether it's scientifically warranted to do that. So we need to look at the science. And frankly, yes, we need to also have a discussion in which there is room and for people to talk about how they feel about the forest, because that is an important issue too. For too long, we have just thought in terms of practical issues, and because we have only thought in practical terms about the environment, we have created a disaster for ourselves. So I don't think that we can move forward with the discussion in town without bringing also that type of narrative and have a space for people to talk about how they see the forest, how they see how they feel about it, and the wisdom of just clear cutting to do a solar park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I see Jim. I don't have a last name.
I'm Jim Barron. I live at 72 Baker Road in Shutesbury. And I think the key for me is to understand what the public, what designation of a public utility empowers the private company to. And I'd like to understand that and then go forward from there.
Thank you, Jim. I see Valerie's iPhone. Valerie, if you could give us your last name and address before you comment.
Hi, it's Valerie Gilman, and it's 85 Baker Road. And I just want to be another voice for not doing this solar panel thing. I don't, from the discussion I've heard tonight, and forgive me, I didn't hear the whole thing. It sounds like you're talking about management of it without, I didn't know that there was a decision that it was okay to do the thing in the first place, to have the solar panel fields here. And my concern is about solar panels work so much, well, I'm sure they would work here. I'm sure they would work, but, and I believe in solar, but not to take down the forest for it. I think about the bears and the deer and the coyotes and the foxes and all the critters that live in there that need to be able to pass through larger swaths of land. And it seems really like a travesty to put solar panels in a forest rather than putting them on, you know, over parking lots and whatever else you can find that's a public already built structure where there isn't any forest that has to be torn down.
Okay, you have about 5 more seconds. I'm the time.
That's it.
Okay,
I just want to put in that vote and try to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. I see Karen.
And I think Ken had a question on this.
I just wanted to say there's some people raising their hand in the video.
Oh,
They're
I'm
not,
sorry. I have
not putting their icon on. So Ken Holt has had his hand up for a long time, and so has Michael DiChiaria.
Okay, go ahead, Ken. Thank you, Sharon. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so I'm speaking as one of the abutters to this, and one of my concerns has been home values. So I actually went to the literature. There's very little on home value, on loss of, on the value of homes in the literature. There is, however, one. I think it's a very good study. That shows that home values decrease pretty significantly, even in with these single arrays. We're going to have a multiple array complex system here that I think could have devastating effects on our home prices. And the other part is that, you know, we're a town that loves our town. We don't want to see large swaths of land destroyed. I just want to read from one of the conclusions from this study. It was by a group at the University of Rhode Island. It says, many rural areas pride themselves on their rural character, and residents seek out that type of bucolic setting. Hence, construction of solar installation could be seen as an industrialization of the landscape, and may cause large negative impacts on property values. So just if you're concerned about finances, if you're concerned about the environment, think also about the effects it will have on you. I have sent a letter out to the town, and I'm happy to share that letter if anyone would like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Michael was next, and we'll go back to Sharon.
Great. Thank you guys for having this. Linda, Michael DeChiara. Three quick points. In terms of the point about this having to come to a town meeting vote, it's reassuring. I'd just like to, at some point, Donna, if you could identify where in MGL it says that a contract over 3 years would require a town meeting vote, because that would be good. So that's point number one. Point number two, I'm just, in terms of things being negotiated upfront and out and open, looking at reason number 10, which is proprietary commercial secrets and stuff, I would be concerned that that might be considered, since we're looking at a multinational corporation that, is looking for market edge. But I think my big point, and I want to commend both Rita and Donna for, identifying this, but rather than feeling like the select board's on its back heels, I would say the thing that you can affirmatively do and tell AMP is, we don't want to consider a contract right now. We have a process in place, which is a permitting process, and has been identified. The proposal should be submitted first. And I would say that would be the clear message to send to AMP. Please, if you want to have a subsequent conversation, the first step that you can do is to submit things to the planning board. It's well-defined and legally based. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Back to Sharon now.
No, I just didn't take my hand down by mistake. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right.
Remy.
Okay.
Valerie's already spoken, so maybe we should make sure everybody gets this.
Perfect.
Hi, thank you. My name is Remy Fernandez O'Brien, and I live at 6 Old Egypt Road in Shutesbury. And I have heard talk of there being an abbreviated version of an environmental impact study, and I would just like to request that the select board commit to a full environmental impact study before this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. I see Leslie and then Marina. Is that correct, April and Rita?
Yeah, I'm going through the list with you.
Okay, thank you.
I take it you meant Leslie, me?
Yes. And make sure you say your name and address for Linda.
Okay, great. I'm Leslie Smith. I'm here with Edward Rednay. We're at 180 Montague Road. And I just wanted to refer back to something that April said earlier on about really having the benefit of the town in mind as we move forward. And I just wanted to open it up to the select board. That it would be really great if we could define what it means to benefit the town, and that is progress. What does progress mean? Is it not necessarily just economic, but is it about looking at the long-term health of our community going on from our children and our grandchildren, and is building things a sign of progress? So not sure about that. So I'd like to request that the select board considers what does it mean to benefit the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie and Edward. Marina, and then I think we'll take the break for Linda so that she can have her, we can have a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and have a few minutes of more questions, and then we'll move on our agenda. Go ahead, Marina.
You're muted.
Now, can you hear me?
Mhm.
So, thank you. I am
State your name and address for Linda.
Marina, and I live at 140 Leonard Road, and
Thank you.
I'm a mental health practitioner. And I think one thing that we've seen with the COVID situation is that in our culture, we overvalue the physical reality and undervalue the mental, emotional, and spiritual reality. And what you can see happening is that because we're disconnected from each other, we don't have a shared understanding of our past, a shared understanding of our present, or a shared understanding of our future. And these all have to do with the mind. And I think, I posted to Nextdoor the TED Talk. I forget the name of the scientist, but I posted it under the heading Trees Talk. And what it reveals in the talk is that underground, through fungal networks, trees actually are communicating with each other. And one of the most amazing takeaways in that talk, which I put in my heading, is that it's through talking with each other that we create more resilient communities. And I think that at its best, that's what Nextdoor can do. And I think that at its best, that's what humans can do. But we really are at a point where we have to make a conscious choice, whether
You've got just five more seconds, Marina. I'm sorry.
to make a conscious choice about whether or not we want to be more like trees, or whether or not we want to continue with the divide and conquer, whether it's within ourselves or within our community.
Thank you, Marina. So now I think we'll take our 10-minute break, let Linda rest her hands, and we'll come back and take a few more comments before we move on with our agenda. Does that sound good? So be back in about 10 minutes at 6:45. Okay.
April, did you check the clock? I can't hear you. There
Did
you
I
go.
check the clock in terms of 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I actually did not.
Okay.
I've been monitoring the trying to keep people down to about a minute.
Okay. I'll double check and find out.
It's soon.
Yeah. 5, 6. You know what time? You know what time it was? Yes, 3:35. 6:46. Yeah. Sure. Did you say 33? 35. Okay, April, it was 6:35.
All right.
So we have 2 minutes.
2 more minutes.
Oops. Ah. Okay.
So Melissa, I've been sort of scrolling through, seeing there's 2 people that maybe you can see on the first
I
page.
see,
as
yeah,
well.
I see Ashley and Meg.
Yeah, I think when you raise a hand, it seems to bump you to the first page, but
It appears
I
that way,
could
but
be
I wouldn't
wrong.
want to rely on that as a,
No.
as a function, because
No. Exactly.
That is what happens, April, when somebody raises their hand. But I noticed some people are waving or applauding.
Yes.
And of course, that doesn't do it. So they have to make sure they do the raise hand function.
And I think we also need to ask, I'm not sure who here is on just a telephone, and
I see only one when I scroll through the participants. April, if you scroll through the participants on the side there,
yeah.
It will show you the ones on the phone. Usually they land at the bottom.
Okay.
But the ones on the phone, excuse me, the ones on the phone have a phone. There's 2.
Oh, I see. So maybe we could ask them
directly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't want to miss anybody who's
I don't
trying to reach. Oh yeah, I see what, so yes.
Although I recognize one phone number, I don't recognize the other. All right. 10 minutes is over, Linda. I don't see you on my screen at the moment, but just say if you're ready to continue.
I'm ready.
Okay, thank you, Linda. All right. Let's see, Ashley, let's start with you. Give your name and address.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ashley Pycroft. I live at 109 Baker Road. I think I have more questions than we have time for, but I want to start just by saying thank you to our select board and our planning board and, and our town administrator, everybody. Most of these people are volunteers, and this is a huge monumental decision, and good luck. I have questions directly for AMP. I also have questions for the select board. One thing that I would like you all to consider when you're thinking about a contract with the developers is if we do go into a public entity agreement with them, I'm wondering about pensions, retirement benefits beyond the 20-year contract. I think, as you all know, it's an issue even now, as it is for towns all over the country to afford these types of things. So something I'd like to be considered. And I really would like to know more about the public's input on a contract. And so that's something I wasn't aware of. If you were to consider going into a contract with AMP and it would become something that would go before town meeting, what would that look like? Would it be us approving a contract that you've already agreed on, or would it be us as a town actually having input into what the contract looks like?
Okay, you've got 5 more seconds.
Okay. And for AMP, I'm just wondering what the benefit to them, what's the benefit to AMP in doing this public entity deal? I'm curious about that, and maybe that's a discussion for another night. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Meg Sheehan, you'll need to unmute yourself.
I will be very brief. My name is Meg Sheehan. I am from the Community Land and Water Coalition. I don't live in Shutesbury, but I have been working on this issue for over 5 years. I've written a report about land-based solar and harm to communities and real estate values to our forests and cultural resources. And I would just urge everyone to think carefully about this. I'm working with communities in southeastern Mass. Plymouth has a very strong bylaw, has limited the land-based solar to 5 acres. In Wareham, we're really struggling to fend off the 20th land-based solar project. And in Massachusetts, statewide Mass Audubon reports that over 4,000 acres have been lost to land-based solar. This is a statewide issue, and we have more information on our website, which is savethepinedarns.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meg. I think I saw Henry next and then Samuel. April, did I catch that right?
I think you did, yes.
Okay, Henry, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to urge the select board to rely on environmental experts to deal with the challenges here of any agreement to deal with, to address the site maintenance. Based on the kinds of conditions required in the Wheelock Tract Solar Project special permit, as well as testimony offered by experts during the permitting of the project, the following list of issues need to be assessed, and I will submit these in writing to the scribe. Large-scale ground disturbances have the potential for upsetting local ecosystems and interfering with natural water runoff patterns. Ground-mounted solar systems are considered an impervious surface according to Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. By definition, such systems alter hydrological site conditions. Ease of site maintenance depends on site conditions, including wetlands, slopes, soil, and vegetation characteristics. Site maintenance and effective functioning of the stormwater management system depends on soil stabilization and appropriate vegetation wherever there is ground.
5 more seconds, Henry.
Site maintenance practices can disrupt habitat, wildlife, and life cycle and pollinating insects and birds and reptiles. There's more, but I will again submit these. Science should be the guide.
Thank you, Henry. Samuel Conrad.
Hello, my name is Samuel, and I live at 38 Weatherwood Road in Shutesbury. And I just wanted to discuss earlier, it had been mentioned that all decisions made will be in the best benefit of the town. And I just wanted to just mention how the reason that we're having a discussion about solar or the need for renewable energy is because of climate change, which has been caused mainly by private corporations seeking a profit over, like since the Industrial Revolution. So just when we're discussing what's in the town's best interest or what's in the environment's best interest, decisions made at town meeting and by town leaders should, having being influenced by private corporations might not be in the best interest because of the historic decisions they've made that have definitely not been in the public's best interest, as their motives have been profit-based and not necessarily what's best for the environment, what's best for small communities, what's best for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. I see Lulu Fontes.
Hi, I'm not a resident, but I grew up in Shutesbury and I spent actually half of last year living in Shutesbury. And I'm just curious, will the select board commit to, if they are going to go through with the process, having a full environmental impact assessment? And can that be put on the agenda as soon as possible? And also, where are you now? Have you gone through with trying to do a shorter version, or I would love more information about that. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Lulu. I do see Robert and Azelle. Robert?
Okay. Okay, hi, this is Rebecca Edelson, 386 Pelham Hill Road, AKA Rivka. My name is Rivka, or people call me Rivka. So I am opposed to solar farms in general. I love the idea of solar on houses, or as someone else said earlier, on parking lots and such, but it just seems incredibly counterintuitive and counterproductive to cut down forest in order to put up solar. And I just wanted to say I'm opposed to these big solar farms in general. Want to say? And just one additional thing. I'm Robert Price, 386 Pelham Road. I'm against really the town taking on business interest in solar and energy production. I'm just flat out against that. I think that's the wrong move for a town to do. And there's probably a really good reason why other towns haven't done it and why there's no precedent to that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. How about Azelle and Jane, and then we'll invite the few that are on by phone to if they have comments. So go ahead, Azelle.
Thank you. I want to apologize in advance if I say anything that was already said. I have my programs, the Rainbow Players, and I had an art class. So I had a double thing happening, but that just finished. So one thing I heard in the beginning part of the meeting was about the part that the town would be involved in would be the maintenance. So my questions, and I'm a little bit like Rivka and Robert, that I'm not really crazy about solar projects on where it requires cutting forest. And I know I've thought, well, don't we have any cleared space? We don't really have too much really already cleared space. So that makes it tricky. But the other question I had was, what does the town stand to gain? I know it would be this relationship that is where it would be maintained by the town. I heard all of that part and I understand that, but I don't understand what the town could gain from it. Like, why would we do that for some kind of a project that basically has a 30-year lifespan? And so we'll be gone probably, but the children might not be.
5 more seconds.
Okay, yeah. So that's my question is, what do we stand to gain? And once all this stuff is set in place, it's going to have to get taken down by someone later on. And that's it. So those are my questions. What do we stand to gain? That's the probably biggest part of it. And I don't want forest cut either. Thank you.
Thank you, Azelle. Jane?
Hi. I just quick input to all of this.
Yeah, you have to give your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Jane Plaza. I live at 314 Wendell Road.
Thank you.
My husband's family has been in this town for over 100 years, and this town means an awful lot to me. in so many ways, but I think it's important for us to ask, where do we see ourselves as a town? I know that a lot of younger people have moved to town because they love the quiet, the woods, the nature of this town. And something like this will so drastically change the perception and everything this town has represented to so many. And I think that's something that I hold dear in my heart. And I don't know how many other people do. I'm assuming other people do. But I think it's important for us to consider what this would do to the perception of our town. It would really change us. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We have a couple people by phone.
And I also noticed that Gabe Fontes was doing a hand thing. I don't know if he meant that as a hand wave or not.
Okay.
I wasn't sure.
Okay, well, we can add them in.
Did you have a question, Gabe? Or that was just a hand wave? Okay. That was a question.
Okay, go. Can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize it was my turn. One of my main concerns is about erosion. So I know in Williamsburg there was a large clear cutting project in a forest, and there were tons of topsoil erosion that ended up permanently damaging a watershed. So even though it wasn't directly on a watershed, because of the slope, the topsoil erosion damaged the watershed, and the Attorney General did a suit. And so I'm curious, I think that's just something we need to keep in mind as we're researching this, like what is the slope and what would the effects of the erosion be on our water supply and wildlife? And do we as a town have a capacity financially to deal with that externality? Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. So let's invite those who are on the phone if they have a comment. You may unmute yourself. There's no way to raise your hand, unfortunately. Zoom has not provided that tech yet. Does anyone who's on the phone want to make a comment? No? No? Okay. All right. We do have 2 minutes left. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment before we head on with our agenda and our other things that we need to complete? Azelle, I see your hand and I see David as well.
Is there
Let me call
anybody
David first. Yeah,
anybody
let me
hasn't
call
gone.
David first. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sorry.
Name
hi.
and address.
David Leach, 25 Stoll Road. I would just like to say, yeah, again, thank you to the select board. And I think at the last town meeting or the last meeting here I was at, I was asking for more information. I feel like this was really, really helpful. And yeah, so thank you guys for that. Appreciate that very much. I guess the only other thing I would say is I would just like to echo all the comments saying, we really need a full environmental impact view. And I know that's not really the select board's purview. That's more, Concom and planning board, right? So I think folks who are asking about that need to also direct those requests to those folks as well. I know that ANRADs have been filed, which are the abbreviated versions of the I'm heavily concussed right now, so the words are not working very well. Those are the abbreviated versions of the environmental impact survey. So if we want a full one, we also need to be speaking to, yes, but I would just like to second the calls for that. And yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much, David.
And it looks like our time is up.
It is. All right. Shall we move on with our agenda? Thank you, everyone, for coming. You're welcome to hang around for other items on the agenda if you'd like. And listen. All right. So the next item on our agenda, I just have to go back to it, and I apologize. My email decided it would like to close on me. So give me 1 second.
Yeah. I just want to be sure Donna is not leaving.
Oh, I was just going to ask.
Donna, don't go anywhere.
The next 2 items, I just want you
Okay, it's over.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
We
so
had a
now we're
lot
on
of
to 32
comments.
Leverett Road and
People
our
were allowed to
collective
talk, make comments.
select board discussion about access to a town well. Becky, would you like to give us a little bit of a background?
Sure.
Okay.
The parsonage on Leverett Road, 32 Leverett Road, was sold about 3 or 4 months ago, and the entity was sold from the Baptist to a private. Good.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it was sold by the person who originally bought it from the Baptist to another gentleman named Eric Benton. And Eric Benton is going to remodel the home. He has just recently taken out a building permit, and he called right away to ask about the connection between the well the town owns, the fire station well on the fire station property that is now connected to the parsonage. And it was, the history of that goes back to 1976, where from some old letters we understand at some point an original well, and Walter's here, he can always jump in if he's still here and tell the history, but there was a hand dug well that became contaminated that was between the parsonage and the fire station. And there was some kind of agreement made with the church that was not done in any kind of writing and not documented with any easements or deed restrictions. So what we have is a verbal agreement. We do not have certified reports or water tests to prove the water was contaminated, and we don't know if it still is. I believe Walter said that on occasion they use the old well as to fill up fire trucks, but that's the only purpose it's been used for. So Donna, the gentleman has come calling, asking for an agreement from the town to hook up the well. And as I talked to you about earlier this week,
Right, to hook up the well or to hook up to the town well?
to hook up to the
town well.
Right.
And the case being that we don't have any documented contamination, I don't know if there's any steps we can take to request that some testing be done on the old well or ask them to dig their own well. Our concern going forward is we have a home and the fire station both currently hooked up to the well. So another house on it over time might cause a shortfall.
And I see Walter is here and he does have his hand up. Walter, I think you should unmute yourself if you want to make a comment.
Yeah, I am unmuted, I believe now. Just a clarification, there's a history of several wells on the location. To clarify that the hand dug well was actually replaced with a drilled well in 1960 when they took from behind the fire station and made a recreation area. They put a new septic system and a new well. That one was the one, the drilled well, which was 100 or several hundred feet deep, was the one that was deemed contaminated about the same time that the then Deladenier property where Bo and Valentine live now, next to just to the west of the fire station, was having problems with their well contamination from the salt shed from the highway department. At that time, they drilled another well in 1976, which is the one that we currently still use. That was the one that was connected to the Deladenier property. And then again, no timeline. In a letter, the most that we have that's documents this at all is a letter from William Randall to Michael Pill in 1994 stating Mr. Randall's history checking of that whole situation and where it stood. And it was estimated sometime in the early 80s that the well at the parsonage was connected, but we don't even have any idea of what year, if it was somewhere between 1976 and somewhere 1980 or early 80s, as that states. We really don't know, because there was no agreement signed. There is apparently, at least he could not find any even minutes from a select board meeting approving the connection, or a town meeting or anything. So it's totally undocumented, with just a gentleman's agreement, if you would, that we would connect water to the parsonage. But that's connected to the current well that we use now, that was drilled in 1976. Just as a clarification of the wells. So that is a progression of 3 different wells on this property, which get confusing after a while.
Is it currently connected to a town well?
Yes, the well drilled in 1976, which is connected to the fire station, and also the Bowen property, does have a line connected from that well to the parsonage, and has been since whatever time it was done.
And are they using water from that well now?
There's been nobody living in it for several years.
And
When there was somebody living there, it was being used, but again, it was just, it had been done. Nobody knew really when, and there is no signed agreement. So, and now it's changed hands twice. So it's,
and there's no plumbing in the property to really test the well. It's been gutted down to the
stud.
well, even if you test the water, it's the water coming from our well, which has been tested. There's I don't even know if anybody knows where the well that was on the parsonage that was deemed contaminated actually is located. I don't know if anybody even knows where that is, and whether it was a shallow well or a drilled well. There was no documentation as to where the well was, what it was, or anything. It was deemed that they thought there was gasoline contamination in it, which was what happened to the well, the drilled well number 2, if you will, at the fire station. And they just decided when they drilled the new well, they'd connect the parsonage. But I don't know if there's any documentation as where that well that was supposedly contaminated is. Is it a shallow well? Is it a drilled well? There's no information on it. So there has been the town's well located on the fire department's property, has been connected to the parsonage for somewhere between 35 and 45 years. Don't really know, because there's no documentation. Nobody probably alive still remembers when that was done, or who made the decision to do it. But it is still connected at this point, but there is no water in there. But if you test that water, what you're doing is testing the water from our well, which has been tested several times over the past few years. What we need to do, if you want to see if they have potable water, is either find the well that's on the property, or they have to drill a new well, have it tested, same as you would be doing if you were building a new house.
April, did you have a?
No, I'm noticing that Michael Pill has his hand up, and maybe he has a memory.
Yeah, what I can help is narrow the time frame a little bit. We moved into our house on June 15th, 1982. And on that night, the family that lived there, the parson, came over and asked me to stop making noise. And we were here all the time, basically. So I know there was no excavation, there was nothing done from June of 1982 on. And so maybe that helps narrow the timeline a little bit, okay? Because that connection had to have been made before June of 1982. And my only concern, quite frankly, is a potential can of worms. When there was the cleanup of the fire station, all the investigation was done to the west, and the well on our property in our forest land in between our house and the town garage showed the very slight traces. And I've tried to be a good citizen and not make an issue of that, although God help us, if we ever go to sell our property, that's going to have to be disclosed, and it's something I'm very concerned about. What this raises a concern about is that is close to our house. It's close to 29 Leverett Road that I bought from the Baronesses. And if in fact there's going to be formal testing of, for example, soil over on the parsonage, that really worries me. Am I going to have to hire somebody to test on our property, or is that going to lead to questions about, in other words, if there is something over there, whether there might be something, 30, 40 feet away, either on the house we live in at 37 or on the old Barones place at 29. Finally, with respect to water usage, all I can say is I agree that people lived there until a few years ago. After it was no longer the pastor's families, I think the church rented it out. And so far as I know, and you all would know, there were summers in there where our shallow well, which is the original 19th century well that was piped into the house, we were basically nursing it through more than one drought. And so far as I know, I never heard about any problem with that house causing, too much demand on the town well. The final thing is, I think it's in everybody's interest to see that derelict restored, put back on the tax rolls. And I'm worried about these guys, okay? That house was sold by the church for $50,000. God bless them that they got that much money for it, okay? And then the person who bought it from the church flipped it the next day. This is public record for $115,000. And what scares me is, are these guys going to be able to do it? I hope they can. And they can sell it and at least get paid for their time. But the last thing they need is, I don't know what, 4, 5, 6, however many thousands of dollars it would take. And then God help everybody if, as occurred when trying to settle the Watkins case, another well is drilled and test shows there's contamination there. I guess what I'm hoping, I don't represent these guys. I talked to them once and wrote an email because I felt my heart went out to them. Maybe it's better just to let this sleeping dog continue to snooze. And of course, the real question is, what happens when they go to sell it? If somebody figures this out, they may let that go by, depending on the buyer's lawyer, or they may ask the town for an easement. I appreciate what you all do for all of us and all the things you put up with. So, I'm not going to hassle you one way or another about it. And I promise that whatever you decide, I will respect. But if there is testing that gets done, I'm really going to be asking that hopefully our property, those two properties, at least along the road frontage, get included. And if there's anything I can do to help, for gosh sakes, let me know. I guess I cause enough grief to everybody, including public officials. If I can, number one, not do that for once, and number two, try to lend a helping hand, I'm ready to try that. Thank you very much.
Michael, two things. Number one, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you today. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Number two, I don't hear anybody talking about soil testing. What I hear people talking about is if there's a well on the parsonage property that's not hooked up, before the town agrees to supply water to the parsonage, that we would want to see if there's potable water in the well on the parsonage. I'm a little concerned about that path because Walter said he's not even sure where the well is on the parsonage. But I'm not sure we're at a point where the town, without any documentation, without an easement from the town, without any kind of agreement to provide water to that house, I'm not sure that we shouldn't at least look at alternatives before we just provide water to that house.
And that's part of why I want to take a step back. And I have great respect for Becky and those of you who are on the select board, and for you, Donna. And in this case, unless something comes up that's totally unexpected or that I can't see anywhere on the horizon, I'm going to trust all of your judgment and good faith, which I do.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Okay. April and Rita, do you have any thoughts now we've been presented with all of that? I do like the fact that maybe if there is already an existing well to go forward and test that first.
Mhm.
Is that our responsibility?
No, it would be the buyer. But
right,
that
okay.
it gets tested first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should rephrase that, but it gets tested first.
Okay, yeah.
Are they also going to run into trouble with their septic? Do they have a functioning septic system?
No, they've, you know, Bill Randall wrote his report because they put it on the market in 1994, and I wanted to dig into it. The church did. And we found it was owned by the State Baptist Society, not the local church. And that was pretty much the end of that. And basically, I went through it with the church people a year or two ago, and my wife basically said, "You're a lawyer, not a real estate developer." And she's smarter than me, so I listened to her. But we went all the way through it. And what the church people told me when we were going through it was that there is apparently a long line that goes out the back. They had in the house an old non-water conserving toilet, because they said that the septic system was so far out in the back that it needed that full 3 to 5 gallons from the old-fashioned toilets, not the 1 to 2 gallons from the modern conserving toilets. And so I think it's probably fair to assume, as I did, that forget whatever was there. Again, if there was, the current Title V was 1994-95. Before that, it was 1978. And I'm imagining that whatever is there predates even the 1978 Title V. So I think it's safe to assume they're going to have to put in an entirely new septic system.
But that's not on the town. No. This water is, and the water is.
Well, we don't know that the water is, and I guess
Right.
if they're going to be doing site work, like putting in a septic, then they're gonna have to locate that old well just for the septic plans, probably, depending on its location and proximity to the septic. So maybe if they could identify it and test it, and then let the town know, provide the test to the town, then we can take this issue back up to make a determination of the situation. But I think right now, we don't have any records committing the town. They need to do a septic as well. You know, let's try and get some more information about the situation before we make any kind of commitment.
Walter's raised his hand again. Walter?
Yeah, just to add a little bit more, if you look at the agreement that was written between the Della Daniers property and the town, there was an agreement. It was brought up at a town meeting, and the town vote, town report. It's also registered in the registry of deeds in that whole agreement and all that. But there is a clause in there that says at some point, if it is ever tested that that property does now have potable water, that basically the town is relinquished from having to supply them water. So there is a release in there that says if that ever cleared up and they had that well was tested and had potable water, that we don't have to supply them anymore. And even though we don't have any kind of agreement that we know of with the property next door, it would be kind of prudent to have that same type of thought, that if that water is clear and potable, then I feel we don't have a responsibility to supply them water. I mean, if it's in a written agreement with another property, we should look towards the same thing. That's just as added information. I think I did send that all that information that I sent out to the select board that I had records of.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, Becky.
is the select board happy with the next steps recommended by Donna? That we will talk with Eric Benton and ask him if he could please search for his well and test that water potentially, and as he starts his development work on the property.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. We need a vote on that, or?
Yes, please.
Do I hear a motion? Who would like to say that?
Okay, so
You just muted yourself.
I'm moving the cursor around, sorry. So I move that that a letter is written to Eric Benton, directing him that the select board won't take any further action on this until such time as he has located and tested the well on the, we'll call it the parsonage property.
So moved. I'll second that.
Second that, okay. Like we had established in our last meeting, do we want to take public comment on this at this point? No,
I think.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Carol, I.
Stein, I.
Makepeace O'Neill, I. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, one more.
We are down, we're down to the church request for handicap access. Becky, did you want to run us through this one for those that are, or would you like me to take a stab at this one?
I'm happy to. You can. Thanks. And we do have Mark Ellis, Reverend Mark Ellis here. Pastor Ellis is here with us, and he will have the best description of the project. So I'll give my understanding is that they very much would like to build a handicap access out the back of the church so that their parishioners could more parishioners enter. And he came with that request to me and the town. And I spoke to Donna a while back, and she checked into the laws regarding the commons, and there's hopefully a process to do it, but it's more daunting than if it was on a normal piece of property the town owned. But because it's the town common, it's restricted. But it appears Donna has worked out a process that we could manage to make it work.
And just to fill, there's one little blank to fill in for anyone who doesn't know. The church only has just a very little around the church that is part of that. So that makes this more complicated, which is what we're talking about.
And this is our little town common.
This is our little town common. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Donna, can you describe what the process is?
Sure, and the complexities around it. So my understanding is the church sits almost on its footprint. And so, the land around it that they would need to use is part of the town common. Under Massachusetts law, a town common is a park. So it's controlled by the statutes that regulate parks. So in order for the town to convey an easement, which is what we're really talking about here, to the church for a handicap ramp, we would not only have to go to town meeting, but because it's park land under Article 97 of the state constitution, we'd have to get 2/3 of a vote from the legislature in order for them to give us permission to give the easement for the ramp. So it's a rather involved process to basically convey parkland, which is what we're essentially doing in conveying an easement in parkland. And so that's really the process that we would have to go through. I thought about some concerns about having a religious use on parkland. I'm not sure that that's really a problem, given that it's a handicap ramp as opposed to some sort of services, something of that nature. that would really violate separation of church and state. So I think really it's just a very, very involved process to convey any park land for any use other than parks. And that's what we'd have to look to.
How much land are we talking about?
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, yes, please, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Pastor Mark Ellis from Shutesbury Community Church. Donna, is the law that you're speaking of Title 7, Chapter 45, Section 7?
No.
Oh, it's not.
No, I'm
Okay.
talking about Article 97 of the state constitution. And what that essentially says is that parkland, conservation land, water resource land, all of those are owned by not only the town in which town has ownership, but also by the people of the Commonwealth. And therefore, in order for a town to convey land that's not only specifically owned by the town, but basically owned by the people of the Commonwealth, you need to go to the legislature in order to convey it. The Zoning Act, other Massachusetts laws are very, very liberal about handicap ramps, happy handicap access, and basically allow them under almost all circumstances. This particular issue is because it's a park.
Right.
That makes it
Title
so
7,
complex.
Chapter 45 is law specifically pertaining to parks, playgrounds, and commons. And Section 7 has to do with the construction of structures which require an act of the legislature for any structure being constructed over 600 square feet.
Right, but we're not talking about a structure under 600 square feet. What we're talking about is a private entity constructing on public land.
Okay.
That's why that section's not applicable, Pastor.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we are very eager to have a ramp and to have handicap accessibility to our second floor. As the select board knows from previous conversations. And we believe and hope that the select board will agree to that based upon a past practice. The church has been there for 6 years short of 200 years. And in that time, there have been numerous constructions and deconstructions. There used to be a door out the back right there, and there were stairs going up to it. Those were removed nearly 100 years ago, or perhaps 100 years ago. We have front steps. We have an oil tank. We have a fire escape coming from downstairs. And to my knowledge, there's never been any requirement that we go through an act of the legislature for any of those. And I personally don't see why we should have to do the same for a handicap access ramp, particularly in this day and age when I think pretty much everybody acknowledges that it's important to provide handicap accessibility and to provide access for all people.
And it's also important to preserve our common. I mean, I think that's where the tension lies here.
I see. Yeah,
As I
absolutely.
understand it.
Yeah, but the church has been on that common for 194 years. And what we're seeking is a structure that potentially would jut out from the church 5 feet, perhaps, if we went out a door and then down along the back of the church. So it would probably be less prominent than our fire escape.
So I had a question about whether or not you have done any design work. Do you have a sense of exactly what kind of footprint that would create to get to?
We have not done design work. We're looking at about an 18 to 20 foot ramp. It's the state requirement is 1 inch, 1 foot per inch. And we believe that the floor height at that point where we want to put it is between 18 and 20 inches. So it could come straight out from the back toward Town Common Road for 18 to 20 feet, and there's plenty of room for that. Or it could come out to a landing and then down just behind the church, going kind of sideways. We then would need to have some sort of a pavement, or I'm not sure exactly how the state would require it, but an access from Town Common Road to the ramp, which could be a sidewalk of some nature. And also state law requires that we have 3 handicap accessible parking spaces.
And that would have to be carved out of the common. Is that correct?
Yes, it would.
So Mark, Pastor Mark, what you're asking for is a ramp potential, like landing pad or walk for the, and then for 3 handicap spaces for the whole project is what you sort of listed there.
Yep, that's the whole project. And Mark is just fine, by the way.
No, thank you.
Mark, it would be great if we could have some dimensions on what that area is.
Okay, well, our intent was to go and file for a building permit. And that would provide all of those things, an architectural rendering of some sort, and the dimensions, the space that would be required, and take it from there.
Well, I don't think you can apply for a building permit on land that's not yours. But I think that if you could get the select board, even if it's not a full architectural rendering, just sort of a little plan of what you would need and what it would entail, then we can start talking about what makes sense to try and accomplish that.
Okay. Well, we can certainly do that.
So would we be looking at a special town meeting then to, because you said there has to be a town meeting vote, correct?
Right.
Which would designate the area and probably.
Well, it would, it would be to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to convey to the church 30 by 40 square foot piece of the common for a handicap ramp and handicap parking.
For the church. Right.
For the church. There's
is it an easement or is it a conveyance? Is it a outright?
Well, it would be an easement is a conveyance, but it would, but
I just was thinking if the church was ever not there and the Baptist Convention or the Shutesbury Church, whoever was selling it, and somebody decided to convert it into something, a house, right, which has been done.
Yes.
Does that easement go then with the next use?
So who owns the church?
The church.
The church
owns
the church owns the church. Okay, so it's not owned by the a larger national group.
The parsonage was built by the church back in 1884, and apparently it was a common practice at that time to convey the deed to what was then the Massachusetts Baptist Society. And that was done in 1885 for $25. So they actually, TABCOM, it's called, the American Baptist Churches of Massachusetts, has owned it since the parsonage since 1885. But the church was never conveyed to them. That is owned by the church. Built in 1827, originally as a joint construction project by several different denominations, with the Congregational, the Baptist, and a couple of others contributing money toward it. And over the years, as different congregations or denominations dropped out, the Baptists continued with it and bought out the others until finally that's all it was. And then it went back to being a community church with the Congregationalists, and in 1906, I think. And it has been a community church since then, although officially affiliated with the American Baptists.
Thank you for that history, Mark. Do you think you could, as Donna had suggested, do you think you could get us a drawing or some sort of dimensions and solid information so we can kind of start thinking about this in that way?
Sure, we definitely can. We're very eager to get this done as quickly as possible. We have financing now to complete the project. We have a number of congregation members who are unable to come to church because of the steps. And we are really eager to get them the opportunity to be able to come to church. We also are very hopeful. Since I became pastor just under 3 years ago, we've offered increasing numbers and varieties of community opportunities, such as our Christmas tree lighting and Santa Claus visit and Halloween and a picnic and whatnot, the Easter egg hunt. And we are very eager to do more and more of those things, including we're working on policies right now for renting and loaning out the church for yoga or, scrapbooking groups or whatnot. And the problem we run into is if we're not handicap accessible, then that can become a real difficulty. We had hoped this past winter when the, I don't know the organization, but the organization, Franklin County organization that visits the homes of seniors and provides them with, in this case, foot care. We were hoping we could, because of the COVID, provide a place for a monthly gathering where the foot care could be handled in our church, but they couldn't do that because we're not handicap accessible. So there's a lot more to it than just simply getting in the few congregation members then that we cannot have come in now because of the lack of accessibility, but we're certainly eager for that. But we are also very eager to become more of a member of the community, such as the church once was years ago when high school graduations were held there and dances and dinners and such. I don't know that we'll ever have a high school graduation there again, but we are really hopeful to start doing concerts. We've already offered movies and have had a number of people come to those. And we just want to, become a bigger part of the community.
Thank you very much, Mark. Get us that information and we'll put it back on our agenda to talk about again.
Yeah.
Okay, I shall have it to you very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now can Donna go?
Yeah. Next on to the Board of Health. So I don't know that we don't need Donna for the rest of our agenda, correct, Becky? Yep.
Right. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank
We'll miss
Night,
you.
everybody. Good seeing you.
You're at the lake.
Yep.
Bye-bye. All right, so on to the Board of Health request for the select board to opt out of mosquito spraying for triple E. Is there someone from the Board of Health that would like to fill us in, or is?
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm Catherine.
Catherine's
Hi,
here.
Catherine.
So in our meeting last Wednesday, the Board of Health voted unanimously to recommend that you apply to opt out. Opting out is not, it's not a done deal. You have to put in an application for it. And the application can be accepted or rejected. A few people, we had people come to the meeting and express their feelings, and they were all very much anti-spraying for all the environmental and human health reasons that you can imagine. It's starting to appear now that there are PFAS chemicals not only in the barrels in which the insecticide is stored, but also in the inert ingredients that don't have to be listed. So there are serious health concerns here. Some people were a little bit concerned that the town might be tying its hands by opting out of this spraying, but the point is, we would be asking to opt out of mandatory spraying by the state reclamation and mosquito control board. We would not be saying that nobody could ever spray in Shutesbury. And by the way, this is a one-year exemption. These things go by year. So that if we felt the need to have anything sprayed in Shutesbury, we would still have that option. Right? We're not giving up any options. We're only, basically it's a local control thing. So the way it works, if you had a chance to look at what I forwarded to you, is there's some formal stuff. You had the meeting, you had, public comment available at the time of the meeting and so on. You consulted with the Board of Health. And then we have to put forward an alternative mosquito control plan, which we essentially already have. Now, being in a mosquito control district does not automatically qualify you for opting out, but it helps. The minimum requirement for an alternatives plan is an education and outreach effort to get people to, one, protect themselves from being bitten, and two, not have a mosquito ranch on their property. We already have that. We do that every year. We send out notices about that. We have stuff on the website. We talk about it at town meeting and so on. So we've already got that piece. We've got the mosquito control district, which is monitoring our town. So we'll get early warning if we start to see disease carrying mosquitoes in our town, and we can get their advice on how to move against them. The kinds of advice they give, and at this point they only give advice. They may expand later and be able to offer services for a fee, but right now they can only give advice, and the advice are things like clean up the standing water and make it run, right? I've noticed Tim out there clearing out culverts, so I think that's already happening. If there's standing water that's breeding mosquitoes and can't be made to flow, then they might recommend those little donut-shaped BTI larvicides, okay, which is kind of the thing that you can do chemically that's the least, has the least impact on the environment. And if there gets to be a serious problem, they can recommend that we spray, and those would all be decisions for us to take. I think we have the makings of a perfect plan right there, especially because it's not very likely that we're going to have this kind of a mosquito arbovirus emergency in this part of the state, at least not this time around. We are right now in the third year. We're coming into the third year of a Tripoli outbreak, and they normally last 2 to 3 years, and then you have a break for several years. It used to be a lot of years, now it's a few years. But these mostly happen in the southeastern part of the state. It would be really surprising, I think, if we had enough infected mosquitoes and enough cases, and God help us, enough deaths to make the DPH issue their certificate. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but they would have to certify that we had a genuine public health emergency and that local control measures were not adequate because of the extent and scope of the problem. I think it's pretty safe for us to opt out, because the odds of it actually being activated here, such as spraying from the control board, are low.
All right.
I was at that meeting and I was really impressed with how, how many people came and how well they were listened to.
Yeah, people came and they were very eloquent and articulate about their concerns, which were many, as you noticed.
I'd also just like to thank the Board of Health for being so well prepared that we don't have to develop any sort of a mitigation plan because we already, an education plan because we already have that in place and have done that.
Right. Yeah, we're ready to go, and we'll do it for you. If you vote to do this, we'll do the work for you.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that
that did it.
Yeah. You haven't got enough to do.
No, I'm so bored twiddling my thumbs here.
So I'd like to make a motion that the select board apply to opt out of aerial spraying.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further questions? Did we want to open this up to public comment at this point, or no, we're good. Yeah, I think we are too.
Well, wait. We do have to say in the application that public comment was permitted.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll open it to public comment for about 5 minutes. How about that? Sound good? Does anyone want to make a public comment?
And use the raise hand feature, please.
Yes, thank you, Rita.
This time I'll look.
Okay, your turn.
Since April did it the last time.
No one wants to make a public comment? All right. I think that fulfills the requirement, Catherine.
Okay.
So all in favor?
Carol, aye.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
That's
And
great,
is there a
you guys.
deadline when we have to sign it? Catherine, is there a deadline that we should sign it by?
It has to be done by May 28th. And I don't know that you have to actually sign it. I think things go as email attachments, but I'll put the paperwork all together and then I'll get back to you and we'll do whatever we have to do.
Okay.
Next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
All right. Moving on to the Shutesbury Athletic Club application for live events and the use of the pool table, their pool table.
So I will
Linda?
move. Yes, we've got these
I
attached,
didn't know
right?
if Linda wanted to give us any rundown that we may have to think about in general. I'm assuming they've talked to the Board of Health and COVID restrictions and adaptions have been made. You're muted.
Sorry, I want to let you know that the last time that the select board considered a matter from the Shutesbury Athletic Club, it was a change of manager, and I want you to know that ABCC approved those documents. So tonight, the athletic club is asking for a license for live entertainment, which is a $25 fee and has been paid. And as you know, I've included all their application forms for you, and also use of a pool table. So what I understand is that the live entertainment, that the athletic club has an event planned for the 15th of May, and at which I've been told no alcohol will be sold. There'll be no employees. It will only be, the SAC directors volunteering. They're asking for the pool table license in advance of their reopening. And I have advised them that they will, prior to reopening, that they still need to provide you with evidence of liquor liability and worker compensation insurance. So I don't know who is here.
I see Tom.
Yep. And if I did tell them 7:45, and so that if you had any questions, someone would be here.
Tom, are you it?
I'm here, but nobody from the Shutesbury Athletic Club asked me to represent them tonight.
Lucky you.
To be one of the officers, and
Excuse me.
It looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it does. And we've signed it before too,
Yes, and actually, it's a sign that things are returning to whatever normal was or is.
I do know, I asked if the Board of Health has been consulted. They did tell me that they met with the Board of Health at their last meeting, and that's what I know.
Okay.
Okay. And the question I have also, Linda, I happened to look in the folder up here since I'm at town hall. All three of us have to sign it, but it doesn't need to have Grace do the notary thing on this one. Sometimes we've had to. That's just the business license.
Right, there's no notary, it's just at least 2 signatures of select board.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Do we feel ready? Do we have further questions, or do we feel ready for a motion? No, we're good.
I'm
Do I
ready.
hear a motion?
I move that we sign the operation of a pool table per Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 202 for the SAC, Shutesbury Athletic Club, and that we provide a license for live entertainment, the same Chapter 140, Section 183A, also for the Shutesbury Athletic Club.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Do we want to open this piece for public comment?
Nah.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Carol, I.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Okay,
okay, we have another 5-minute break in here at 8 o'clock. Are we good with taking another 5-minute break now, since we're a little ahead of time? Yep, good. Okay. Linda.
I just want to, yes, Melissa already brought up the subject of signing. So we're on a time crunch because I'd like to be able to collect the licenses on Thursday so that then I can make a copy and have them ready for the SAC to pick up on Friday, because
I'll sign tonight before I leave, so there'll be at least one on there. And then
yep, and I will try to get up there tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is.
I said I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, okay. We have warrants to sign as well.
Yes, there are.
Yes. Been
Okay.
bad.
So why don't we take a 5-minute break now, and then we'll be back in at 8 o'clock. Sound good? Okay. All right. It's 8 o'clock. Shall we start on the home stretch of our agenda? For the lack of a better name for that part. So
I just had dinner.
you just had dinner in that
Just
5
had
minutes?
dinner.
Okay. So the next thing is the MDLC Small Library Pilot Grant Program. And is Mary Ann joining us by chance?
Here.
Oh,
There
there
she
you are.
is.
Thank you for turning your camera on.
You're welcome.
Would you like to give us a background for us and for those that are here?
Sure. Hi, everybody. So, so for a couple of years now, the Board of Library Commissioners has been reviewing the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program and looking for ways to make it easier for small towns. Since 1987, I think is when the program started, they have built or done addition, renovation, conversion projects to about 230 projects, and only 13 of those have been in small towns like ours across the state. So, you know, the state's smallest towns have a hard time taking on a project like this, and they recognize it. So last Thursday, the Board of Library Commissioners approved a small library pilot project. This is a pilot where it's a competitive grant with a streamlined application process that's going to be announced now. And it's going to be this Board of Library Commissioners is going to provide more support and guidance through the design and construction process, and they're going to pay for a larger percentage of the costs. So they are able to pay for 75% of the eligible costs, and the eligible costs are everything except for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and paving and landscaping. So the last time we went through this process, they were going to pay about 60% of the eligible costs. So it's really quite a difference. They have $3 million budgeted for this. And so if $3 million were, you know, and of course we don't know how much this project is going to cost. The town hasn't been selected and the project hasn't been designed yet. But this will also include planning costs. And remember, in the past, those planning costs were a separate process, and now the planning is rolled into the whole design process, you know, the whole thing. So so let's see, what else did I want to say? And then this is a one-time pilot designed for them to, you know, do a project using the streamlined process with more guidance. And then they will then use the information they gather in this process to help inform small library construction projects in the future grant rounds. And then the next full grant round isn't anticipated to be until about 2026 at the earliest, so 5 years from now. And then the other bit of news that I have that's related to this is that we have almost $500,000 saved for a new library. There's $227,700 in the town appropriated fund. Thank you, town meeting year after year. And then privately raised funds are $259,000. So it's almost $489,000. I'm pretty sure that by the end of next week, that'll be an even higher number. We're expecting a couple of big yet small compared to the thing, but a couple of big contributions to come in next week. So that's the information I have. I sent over, so there's a couple of different things. So the trustees of the library and, and I are thinking that we're going to apply for this. This is our best shot at providing a library that meets the needs of this community anytime soon. And the other thing is we need a new library now more than ever. Our library is 768 square feet, a single room. Social distancing is not possible in our library. There's only room for one staff person behind in the little staff work area. And there's no running water. Now, COVID probably won't be with us forever, but it's going to be with us for quite some time. So our library that was inadequate is just, it's dangerously inadequate now. So this, this is an amazing opportunity. The step, when I just think last night I was sort of having this revelation that this is just this amazing gift that the state is giving to towns across the Commonwealth. There are 56 towns that have a population under 2,000 that haven't participated in this program. And now some of them, this has to be new construction. It can't be an addition renovation. And some towns aren't willing to do that. But for us, that's really our only option. And it's just it's an incredible gift that the state is offering to a town right now. There's no guarantee we'd be selected. So there are a couple of things. I sent over some language for a warrant article to Becky because we've got town meeting coming up, and it would be nice to take that first step of asking for permission to apply for the grant and then accept the grant if it's offered to us, which is standard practice with state grants. And then the other thing I'd like to do is get a volunteer from the select board and Becky, and I already have a volunteer from the trustees and then the Friends of the Library to meet with me early next week to kind of look at the application and look at some of the steps that we need to take and come up with a game plan so that we can put the best application forward for this process.
Okay.
Exciting.
And just a clarification, you're asking the select board to put an article on the town meeting warrant.
Yes.
That's what is before us for tonight.
Yes.
To permit the library to apply for these.
Yeah, let me pull it up. It's let's see. Let me find it. Okay, so it's to see if the town of Shutesbury will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and/or the library trustees to apply for any state funds which might be available to defray all or part of the cost of the design, construction, and equipping of a new library project, and to authorize the library building committee and/or Board of Selectmen and/or library trustees to accept and expend any such funds when received without further appropriation. So that's almost exactly the same language as the last time.
Marianne, should it include a mention of this particular program?
It could. We could. Let me just pull it up in a Word document. Let me look at it. So it could be to apply for any state funds. Could it say something like such as the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, small library pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it should I think it should reference the program,
Okay.
rather than big, so openly vague, I think.
Okay, it's, even the last time, this is sort of standard language. And that's where it came from, but, can I share my screen so we can look at it, or, yeah?
Becky, can you have her, make her able to share her screen?
There you go.
All right, let's see if it's there. Here it is. Okay, so there it is. So, so let's see. Or so it could be to apply for state funds through the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, small library pilot.
Yes, I like that verbiage. I don't know what
Okay.
other people feel. Yeah.
So I'll take out, I'll take out the word any.
Didn't select board since that's the proper.
Yes, select board. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I was cringing.
So were we.
Okay, all righty. Do I have it right to apply for state funds through the Massachusetts Public, and I'll write that all the way out. The Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, small library pilot, and then you're the select board, and that's all one word?
Yeah, I like it as two, but I don't know what it officially is.
I always write it as one.
And who's that, Becky?
Yes, Becky.
And with a lowercase b?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just.
I don't know if there's an official way to do it or not.
Also
Okay,
on
so
the
how does
first
that
line.
look?
In the first line, Marianne.
Oh, that's okay. It's in place, two places. Okay. Board of Selectmen, all women.
Yes. Oh, well.
Okay. Okay, that looks better. Okay.
Excuse me, Marianne, this is Linda. Would you be willing, when you're all set with this, would you be willing to send it?
Yes. Yeah, I'll send you the language. I'll just write out Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program so that it's not those initials, and then I'll email it to you, Linda.
Thank you.
I need it as well, Marianne. 'Cause
Okay.
you changed what you gave me already.
Yep. Okay.
So shall I move for the select board to authorize this request for funding through the MPLCP small library pilot to be on the warrant for town meeting on June 12th, 2021.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. I do see Susie's hand up. Do we want to take public comment at this moment?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right. Go ahead, Susie.
I'm a little confused by the end of that sentence, where it says to accept and it's probably expend any such funds when received without further appropriation. I don't know what the without further appropriation means. And that last, it needs to be expend instead of expand, but I don't.
So I think what that means is that the town doesn't then have to appropriate it. So it doesn't, it's already appropriated. So it doesn't have to, we don't have to go back to the town and say, we got this grant, can we spend it on X? It's already, this grants that appropriation.
But
another vote required.
But the town may, how does the town funding part fit into
Well,
that?
so that's a different piece.
Okay.
That is, so that would then be so if we got a grant from the Board of Library Commissioners, it would be contingent on us providing our local match. And that's a different piece. This is just permission to apply for the grant. It's not permission to move forward with the project.
And that match, rather than 40% would only, previously, this would be 25%.
Right.
It's huge.
And we already have half of the 25%.
Michael, go ahead.
So just to what Susie had said, she just changed the typo from expand to expend. And my suggestion, given the confusion, if you take out any, then it gets more specific, just like it's just the funds from this process. It doesn't imply anything more than that.
I do
After
agree.
any, after expend.
Yeah.
There you go, like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other comment before we, Brad? I see your hand up.
Regarding Michael's comment, I get very confused with this stuff too, but some of the money that's been raised, Mary Ann, you'll have to correct me. Some of it's in a town account and some of it's in the Friends account.
Yes.
And if you take out the any, then it may be that the only thing that can be expended is the money from the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, and not what we've already raised that's being held in town funds.
No, because this is specific to this grant.
Okay.
Okay, Kate's, well, I'm not
That's
sharing this,
okay.
but Kate Shell has.
I did see your hand. Kate, go ahead.
Okay.
And then Michael Vinsky after. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's right. It's important to keep clear that this is just permission to apply for the grant. It's not permission for the town to appropriate the matching funds for the grant, whether out of existing funds raised for the new library or out of any additional way that we might raise the revenue. I just want to really emphasize, and I know you all, I believe you all like fully appreciate this, but I think the fact that we have been so diligent as a town in setting aside money yearly for this, and as a as a larger, well, as the sort of private interest in the library has raised an almost equivalent amount, I hope that that's a really strong signal to the commission that the town is serious and well prepared for constructing a new library. And I'm just really excited that we have this opportunity.
Great, thank you, Kate. Michael Vinsky.
Yeah, say I'm still confused about on what this is actually saying here. I don't know if it's saying that it's going to use the funds from the MBLC solely, or if it's going to be a combination of the MBLC funds and the town funds. So and if it's just a approval to apply for the program, I'm not even sure why you need to be talking about the funding at all. So it's very confusing to me what exactly this is saying.
This is pretty standard language. It is, we use this almost as exact same language in 2010. And this same language has been used by towns across the state that have participated in this program. So we're applying for a grant which will defray, the cost of the design, construction, and equipping of a new library project. And that's all it is.
But it's still confusing as to what money you're talking about. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's not clear. And whether it's standard phraseology or whatever, it still isn't clear.
It's a grant from the state of Massachusetts. It would be
then-
money from the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program. It's a state bond that
What-
is administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners.
Then I think you should write that in there.
I think the first
I think
sentence
that's-
says that. It's
I
to
think
see
it
if
does
the
say
town
that, yeah.
Vote to authorize the select board and or the library trustees to apply for state funds through the
That's
Massachusetts
all.
Public Library Construction Small Library Pilot.
That's, yeah.
I think that's pretty
I,
clear.
I think I see where Mike, is it the last sentence where it says expend that makes it more confusing?
Yes, that is it. So
That'd be good.
if you say you refer to state funds through the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program at the beginning, and if you just say expend the state funds received through the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program in that last line, I think it would be very clear.
I think it's implied in expend such funds, but anyway, this can be clear.
I think the clearer it is for town meeting, the better.
This is just asking us to, we're
For
applying,
permission.
yeah, right. And that if we, yes.
So would you mind changing that to state funds?
Or to the MP LCP funds, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you, Rita. That does make it very
Oh,
specific.
wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask
I want to
instead
put that
of
down
such
here.
funds-
Yes,
Instead of such funds, put the MP LCP
funds.
and take out such.
That makes sense.
Does that feel tighter, Michael?
Yeah, that's a lot clearer now. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comment or questions? Marianne, thank you for editing on screen. It was helpful.
The
All in
Zoom
favor,
stuff is good
isn't it? So,
Yeah.
stuff.
I said earlier, the office spaces will become open and easier to use while the Zoom stuff. So
Mhm.
all in favor of putting this on the town warrant? Oh, do I hear another Becky? Did I hear you?
I see Diane has her hands raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane. I apologize. Please forgive me.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get my video back, but it's not happening.
That's okay. We can hear you. Oh, there you go.
There you are.
I had a suggestion to simplify this proposal even more. And I want to suggest that it says to see if the town of Shutesbury will vote to authorize the select board and or the library trustees to apply for state funds through the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, the small library pilot, and then put a period, and that's it. So it's just authorizing to apply for the grant.
Any thoughts on that suggestion? Rita, April, Becky?
It doesn't have the accepting language if you do that. And I think the select board and the library trustees to accept is an important piece.
To accept and expend.
You're right.
And expend the funds, but it's, they can't spend it if they don't accept it.
Right.
So I think that, yeah.
That was a good suggestion though, Diane. Thank you. Very good suggestion.
Thank you.
I do see, I think I see Michael's hand and then Kate Sells, but I'm not exactly sure which I saw first. So, Michael.
I'm good. I was gonna,
Okay.
Mike Vinsky caught my edit, and I was just going to respond to Diane that I think the way it is, sort of, the board wants to know that not only you accept it, but then you're going to use the money. They don't want to sort of get stuck and accepted but not being used. So I think this is a better way, but.
Thank you, Michael. Kate?
Yeah, I also, the thing, I totally get Diane's suggestion, and I, in general, I'm in favor of making things simpler. I do think it's really important that we talk about what the grant is for, right? Because it's not for example, remodeling our existing library or anything like that. And so we do need to be specific about what the purpose is so that everyone's clear what we're talking about, I think. Thanks.
Any other further questions or such? All in favor of putting this on our town meeting warrant?
Carol, I.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Okay.
Awesome.
We'll let town
Thank
meeting.
you.
Warrant. Thank you. All right, on to annual town meeting review. That was a nice
But wait a
segue.
minute, there was one more piece.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. So, and then I said I wanted to sort of gather together a meeting of the
Oh, yeah, I'm
minds
sorry.
at
Reading
the
it
beginning
down.
of next week. So if there could be like a volunteer from the select board who would like to do that.
I'm probably the one with the most time. I think. I would.
can do it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not going to be on the board much longer. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I don't think that does. Is that okay with you, Rita?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So, so I think I'll have the application soon. I'll send out a doodle poll with a few days and times for next week. Okay. And this is just sort of a one-time, let's all look at this together with more minds than one, and then plan and figure out what we need to do and make a game plan. Okay, excellent.
That's good. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to skip over it, Mary.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. That's okay,
Okay.
Melissa.
Yes.
Okay.
It's getting late.
All right, so that segues right into the annual town meeting review and FinCom schedule. Becky, do you have those pieces, the FinCom schedule?
I
Review?
want you all be aware that the Finance Committee is going to hopefully finalize their budget tomorrow night. And if not, then I think they'll have to schedule another meeting before your meeting on the 18th, when they'll be bringing the final budget to the select board. And we'll be reviewing the warrant.
All right.
On the 18th.
Okay. Was there anything else with the town meeting review?
I
We
was
have things
hoping
started under going forward with our setup.
Yeah, I don't see Paul Lyons here, so I'm gonna put him on our next meeting.
He's here.
Oh, there he is. I see him.
Paul, are you here?
He's just here as Paul.
I'm here. I've been hanging in.
Thank you, Paul. There were two Pauls for a while, so I'm not sure. Great, good to see you, Paul.
Yeah, good to see you all as well.
So we are going to be doing a rerun of last year for our annual town meeting. Many of the pieces are coming into place. I believe the Board of Health, when I think Catherine is gone at this point too, but they have reviewed what they will do at this town meeting. It's going to be abbreviated from last year. They won't be having the same level of when at the top of the driveway, they won't have 2 or 3 people there to escort people in, but they will be having rounds. They will have their whole committee will be active in the process. We haven't finalized the seating arrangements in regards to the tents, but I hope to have a meeting this coming week to do that when Paul's available. I think we're gonna have the large tent, only one porta potty. We have the use of Mary Ann's tents, hopefully, to do as we did last year for the finance committee, select board, and moderator, by the hut, the electronics hut over on the left-hand side, the eastern side of the yard. And all the documents, again, will be sent out. I mean, will be online. We're not going to be printing up documents unless the Board of Health okays that piece. We haven't, but I know we're not attempting to have a folding party for the and do a mailer. So we're going to be asking people to print out their own documents and bring electronic devices to town meeting. The MLP said they again would assist in boosting the internet signal from the hut so that attendees can have their devices to follow along. Questions?
Okay.
Have you arranged for good weather?
I put that order in January, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah. No, it'll be a surprise if it doesn't rain. It's
Yeah, well, weddings and big things tend to attract it. Paul, you have your hand raised. Oh, I'm sorry.
We will be sure to take down all the smaller tents that we put up right following the meeting, so we don't lose any more in a storm afterwards, like we did.
And
last.
especially if it's dry, because you can pack them away dry. You don't have to dry them. Paul, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple things. Last year we had a lot of planning meetings. I'm sure things will be much more, smooth and streamlined this year since we learned so much from last year. But I just want to make sure, since we're talking about an event that's only a month away, that we allow enough time to plan all those little details that, they just keep popping up, all the details that we have to attend to. So, I'm glad to hear, Becky, that you want to try to get together this week. So I will do my best to, accommodate your schedule, and I'm anxious to get that planning process going. The other two things that are on my mind, one is to make sure that townspeople are kept in the loop as much as possible, not only reminding them of the date, but, things like, giving them good advance notice that they'll have to print out their own copies of the warrant and other, budget documents and whatever else they want to bring with them. Make sure they understand what the procedures are going to be, well in advance, if they have to bring their own chairs and, masking and all of that. As soon as we have that information available, I think we should get it out. And then the last thing is regarding the warrant. As soon as possible, I'd like to be able to see, an advance copy of that, so I can have some input, and especially if there are any citizen petitions. I don't know if there are any this year. Becky, can you tell me if there are?
We do not have any at this point. There was an inquiry, someone talked about a petition for a special town meeting earlier this afternoon, but I think that might not be moving ahead because I don't think the issue is there as they were concerned about. So I don't believe we have any petitions, but
okay, good.
I have to double check with Grace, and Grace is not here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if there are any citizen petitions, I just want to have a opportunity well in advance to be able to talk to the petitioners, just in case there are issues about wording or exactly what they're asking for and so forth, so that we can work all those out before the select board finalizes the warrant. Yeah, and other than that, it's just, again, ordering the articles and trying to group them as we did last year with our consent agendas, to try to tackle a whole bunch of especially the routine articles all at once with one vote. So I just want to have as much input as possible into that, that process.
Definitely, and I can review that with you when we meet. Maybe I can meet with you earlier than the Board of Health and a couple other people.
Okay, great.
You can put your stamp on that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions related to town meeting and the FinCom schedule? No. All right. Let's move on to receiving the personnel board member resignation. Ralph Armstrong has given us a letter of resignation from the personnel board. Do I hear a motion? Okay.
I'll move to accept that.
Okay. Rita, second. Okay. I see that second. I'm reading the lips. Okay. All in favor?
Sorry, I was going to say, and thank Ralph for his service.
Yes.
Farrell, aye.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. There is a thank you note already in our boxes to sign, so we'll send that to him.
Hey, thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome. I'm forgetting something. We have the planning board thing to accept and send back to them.
Yes.
Planning board, okay.
Amendments
And the
thing from Bruce.
Yes, that, yes.
We have, at the 12th hour, the Massachusetts School Building Association has decided that they will put out an application this year. And the due date is January 1st. It just came out, and so
oh no, I'm sorry. Never mind. Keep going. Don't mind me.
So I have a document, be it resolved that the select board at its meeting prior to the statement of interest submission closing date, the select board in accordance with its charter, bylaws and ordinances has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form, and we'll have to fill in that date because they're just in process of writing it for the elementary school. And a request for the roof. I know we will be getting in bid results for the gym roof on May 26th, but we still have the 30,000 square feet of asphalt roof that will need to be addressed. So we will attempt for a fourth time to get state funding for the remainder of the roof.
And Becky, I just had a question. Did they set a new limit on the age of the roof? Because I know they moved the target. Everyone applied.
Well,
Yes.
that's the wonderful thing about this state application. They don't make the decision what year to use until after they know what applications they've received, and they determine how much money they have. And then they choose the cutoff based on the balance of their funds.
Great.
To knock out those they don't have money for.
Okay. Because we've missed out
Yeah.
many years. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The roof has not gotten any younger.
None of us have.
Well, that goes. No.
7 years old, which was the magic number last year. So it'll probably be 28 this year. But we'll try.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
so do
we
need
will.
a Motion?
Yes, please.
Yes, so I'm moving. I think I'm getting a little tired here. What am I moving?
You're moving for us to sign the Massachusetts building.
The
that
school
can move them
board
up.
or the MSBA, a letter to the MSBA authorizing the statement of interest submission.
Yes, so moved.
All right. All in favor of signing?
Carol, aye.
Stein, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. And I've just hit the signature. Oh, I have to print my name too. Hold on. They wanted it electronically. And last year we ended up with a problem when we waited the next day. So, okay, that's all set.
Okay, good.
Melissa?
All set. Perfect. All right. And now the accepting the amendment from the planning board. Do I hear a motion to accept the amendment from?
Yes, so moved. I moved to accept the amendment to the planning board associate members.
Okay. And to send it back, we vote 2 votes. We send it back to him after. So all in favor of accepting it?
Cheryl, aye.
Stein, aye.
Peace O'Neill, aye. And then do I hear a motion to send it back to the?
Yes, so
planning board?
moved.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Cheryl, aye.
Stein, aye.
Peace O'Neill, aye. Okay.
There's the other amendment for the zoning bylaw, change the use table.
They did that last time. That's done already. Yeah. Yep.
All right. I think, Becky, the only thing on here now is town administrator updates.
I'm gonna make them pretty quick. I did a walkthrough the elementary school. Well, mostly they climbed up a ladder and I watched them on the roof. And then we did a tour of the gym interior roof, but the contractors had their official walkthrough and bids will be received by the town on May 26th for the gym roof replacement. The personnel board has selected a member for the police work study committee. It's Melody Chartier. And she, so now that I have all members, I can move ahead and have a meeting to set up the first organizational meeting.
So we have to appoint her, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So I move to appoint Melody Chartier to the police study group.
And I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Carol, aye.
Stein, aye.
Peace O'Neill, aye.
And the last thing is the bid documents for the Locks Pond Culvert are going out in early this coming week.
Great.
Okay. Do you need us to do anything with that, Becky, at all? No votes or anything? Okay. All right. I don't see any minutes on here on our agenda. So I don't think we have any, right, Linda? We'll save them for next time. Okay.
It's coming fast and furious. It's like,
well, not too fast, but
No, and not too furious.
no, I mean, the meetings.
the meetings are coming quickly.
That's right. Are we meeting tomorrow? Do we have that emergency management? That's not tomorrow.
No, that'd be
the
hold on. Let
MVP.
me glance at my calendar. No, emergency management is on Monday.
But we're meeting on the 19th. We're having that informational group meeting. Yep, that'll be good.
Yeah. And I'm just waiting on Zara's response so I can get the advertising out. She's looking over the announcement.
Okay.
And we're meeting next Tuesday, the 18th as well, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, good. I wouldn't want to miss.
We'll find something to do on the 20th. Don't you worry.
Oh, man. All right.
This is, as select board members wind down their term, that the goal is to meet every night.
Okay, that's a good.
That seems to be.
That seems to be what we're doing.
Go out with a bang,
I'm
April.
going to miss working with you guys. I just have to say that. And I'm not crazy. No. No.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I'll second that.
Okay. We got through this one.
Yes,
We're not
we
too
got to
far-
wait.
we're
Let's
not
vote
too
it.
late.
I seconded it.
Okay, so all in favor?
Carol, aye.
Stein, aye.
Peace O'Neill, aye.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good dinner. You
Yeah.
give that grandchild of yours a hug.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.